Using app tethering to enable CodeSite for tracing mobile applications. My name is Bob Swart, also known as Dr. Bob, from Bob Swart Training and Consultancy in the Netherlands. I'm an Embarcadero MVP, Delphi developer, consultant, trainer and reseller of Delphi and related tools like CodeSite. In this session I will demonstrate how we can use app tethering to enable us to send trace and debug messages to CodeSite from cross-platform applications. I will be using Delphi 10.1 Berlin, but this technique has been working in Delphi since app tethering was first introduced back in Delphi XE6 I mean. The agenda for the session. First I will explain what CodeSite is and which editions of CodeSite exist, CodeSite Express and CodeSite Studio. I will then demonstrate how we can install CodeSite Express in your copy of Delphi, C++ Builder or Red Studio so you can play along with this session. We will start with building the CodeSite tethering server, using the tethering manager and tethering app profile to configure it as a tethering server that our clients can connect to send messages to CodeSite. This tethering server is VCL and will run just on Windows. Then we'll create a CodeSite tethering client. This one will be built using FireMonkey and can be a cross-platform or even mobile application. The most important part is a data module with a tethering manager and tethering app profile. And we use it to connect to the CodeSite tethering server using discovering, pairing and connecting that I will demonstrate in code. And finally, in the end, we'll have a cross-platform CodeSite send method that we can use from any cross-platform and mobile applications from FireMonkey, sending log messages from my applications to the CodeSite live viewer and CodeSite log file. That's very convenient. It was 2 decades to help me locate problems more quickly than before. I can use CodeSite to send all kinds of information to live viewers or a log file. With CodeSite Studio I can even use TCP, UDP or HTTP to send these log messages to a remote server, like my own server in the office, while the client's application is running somewhere else on this planet. That's very convenient since problems often happen on the client's machine but not on mine. And CodeSite now helps me to locate and fix these issues a lot easier. CodeSite was originally created by Ray Software, but it was acquired by Embarcadero Technologies a couple of years ago. There are 2 editions of CodeSite. CodeSite Express is available for free for Delphi, C++ Builder and Red Studio developers, and I will demonstrate how we can install it shortly in the IDE. CodeSite Studio is the full product, which includes the option for remote debugging amongst others. You can purchase CodeSite Studio from Embarcadero or resellers like me for €459, which includes 1 year of subscription. If you already have an existing version of CodeSite, you can upgrade for €229, which also includes subscription. If you don't own CodeSite Studio or just want to get started with CodeSite, you can use the free CodeSite Express, and I will now demonstrate how we can install CodeSite Express in your copy of Delphi, C++ Builder or Red Studio. If you start Delphi, on the welcome screen there's the Get Add-ons from Get-It dialog, the Get-It package manager. It's one of the free packages, CodeSite Express. So if you scroll through the available items, here's CodeSite Express. We can click on install and it will download and install CodeSite Express. And after the installation we must restart Red Studio to complete the installation of CodeSite Express. It's now downloading the library, extracting, and then we'll get the setup for CodeSite Express on our machine. This is launching. It's just next, install. It will automatically install the tools that are made up of CodeSite, including a CodeSite dispatcher to dispatch the messages, as well as a CodeSite file viewer and a live viewer. Now the process is complete. We can click on restart to restart the Delphi 10.1 Berlin IDE, and this time with CodeSite embedded in it, so we can use it for our applications. And as you can see on the splash screen in a few seconds, it should tell me that CodeSite Express 5.2.2 is now also installed and part of Delphi, so we can start to use it. We can now find the CodeSite menu items, including the CodeSite dispatcher, the tool that will send the CodeSite messages from our application to the CodeSite live viewer or file viewer, or to a remote machine if you got CodeSite Studio. Once the dispatcher is up and running, we can create a new application, like a new VCL Forms application, to demonstrate the use of CodeSite and to start it as the CodeSite App Tethering manager. So save this application, save this project with my main form, and I save it as my CodeSite App Tethering manager. So that's the CodeSite server application for our session of today. We can add a little memo, and we can add a button to the form, and the memo will show the last CodeSite message that we have just sent, and in the button I can test CodeSite to see if it works on our machine. We need to add the unit CodeSite logging to the users clause, and then we should have a CodeSite global object, CodeSite class, which has a number of methods. I typically use CodeSite send, but we can have formatted sends, we can have enter methods and exit methods to send information. The send method is heavily overloaded. We can send multiple message types, we can send objects, white strings, a lot of information. With CodeSite Studio you can even send bitmaps, memory status of your machine, datasets, all kinds of stuff. In this case I just said CodeSite hello Delphi and C++ builder, so we can test this application to see if CodeSite already works. I usually run without debugging if we don't need to debugger. So I run this application, and if we click on the button we should send the message to CodeSite live viewer, and here's the live viewer with our trace message hello Delphi and C++ builder from the application with a thread and a timestamp. These are columns, and you can configure the columns that you want to see with select columns. You can get a category, sometimes you get information, warnings or error messages, the computer name. In this case we're working on the single computer. Thread ID, date and timestamps. So this is nice, especially the app name, so you can see CodeSite messages from different applications in your live viewer. And if you use the remote debugging capabilities of CodeSite, you can even get from different machines, different applications. So you can use that to trace messages between DataSnap servers and clients, for example. Anyway, this shows that we can have CodeSite up and running on our machine, so we can start to make the CodeSite App Tethering manager. In order to make it available for Mac, iOS and Android clients, I want to turn this CodeSite application to a CodeSite App Tethering manager. We need two components to do that. We need a tethering manager and we need a tethering app profile. The tethering manager has a number of properties, and we should set the allowed adapters to only network. I don't want to use Bluetooth or specific networks. I want to use any network here. I will set the text to CodeSite manager. So later when we want to connect to managers and profiles, I want to specifically connect to a tethering manager that has the text CodeSite manager. And I should also specify the passwords. In this case the password is geheim, which is Dutch for secret. So anyone wanted to connect to the CodeSite messages must specify the correct password. Now let's go to the tethering app profile component. This component must be connected to the manager, of course. I can give it a text of CodeSite profile, and optionally we can include it in the group ebob42. So now we have our tethering manager component and our tethering app profile component. There's an event, the on resource receive event, on resource received, and this is where a client has sent information, a text string, to the app tethering manager, and we receive the resource and we can do something with it. In this case we have a memo component, so I can assign the text to my memo. For example, datetime to string of now, and let's add the actual message, which is part of my resource, which has a value, and we can get the asString property of the value. So we can pass any resource from the client to the server and then convert it to a string and show it inside my memo field. Apart from showing it in a memo field, I of course want to use CodeSite, the CodeSite send method, to send my resource value as string. So the memo component is just to show us in the CodeSite App Tethering Manager what's the last message that have been received, which is not thread safe of course, but for this demo it's okay. And CodeSite itself is thread safe because it uses Windows messages to send information from the application to the CodeSite dispatcher and back to the CodeSite live viewer or file viewer. So this is thread safe, and we can now send information to the CodeSite live viewer or file viewer using this statement. So the profile resource received, any app tethering client that connects to the server will now be able to send a resource to the server, a string to the server, which will the server then forward to the CodeSite live viewer or file viewer. So this basically is all that we needed to create a CodeSite App Tethering Manager. Oops, one error. Oh, it's already running. So shut down the existing App Tethering Manager, compile and run the new one, and this is now up and running, waiting for any App Tethering client to connect to it and send messages to it, which it will then forward to our CodeSite live viewer for us. The Tethering Manager and the Tethering App Profile, and I configured them according to this slide. Now for the client we need similar components. For the client we need a data module which can be made cross-platform, so we can use it in VCA and FireMonkey, and another Tethering Manager and Tethering App Profile, again connected to each other. But this time in the onCreate event of the data module I will use the Tethering Manager to discover other managers for tethering app servers like the CodeSite Tethering App Server, trying to connect to it so we can make a connection and send our resource messages to it. As our app tethering client, so right click on the project group, add a new project and select from Delphi a multi-device application. I want to create a blank application that can run on Mac, iOS and Android. We just save the project with a client form and my CodeSite client, and in this application I want to add a data module, so do add new other, and from Delphi files I'll select the data module. This data module can then be used by both VCL and FireMonkey applications, and all the code to connect to my CodeSite App Tethering Manager will be embedded inside this data module. So on this data module we need the two tethering components again, so the Tethering Manager and the Tethering App Profile. And for Tethering Manager, for properties we select network again, and I can give it a name, CodeSite Manager again, CodeSite Client Manager, and the Tethering App Profile must be connected to my manager, and we can also specify the text, the CodeSite Client Profile, and that's about it. We don't need to specify the password in the Tethering Manager because there's another event that we can use to specify the password. We do have to implement some events, including the onCreate event of my data module, which must be used to start the Tethering Manager, Tethering Manager 1 dot discover managers. Discover managers, and we can optionally specify a timeout or just ignore it. This will send out messages on the network, since we specified as channel the network, to other app tethering managers to see if we can make a connection with them. Before we continue, I should save this file and give it a name as my CodeSite data module. So this is the CodeSite data module that you can use in VCL as well as FireMonkey applications. We must now implement 3 events of the tethering manager. First of all, the on-end manager discovery. In this event handler, we must respond and connect and pair with all managers that have the manager tag set to CodeSite manager. In that case, we try to pair with that specific manager. When the managers are paired, we must connect to the profiles using the on-end profiles discovery. In this case, for all remote profiles on the tethering managers, we try to connect to those specific profiles. And finally, the password. In the onRequest manager password event, we must return the password, which is geheim, to enable our CodeSite client, the data module, to connect to the CodeSite App Tethering manager, so we can actually connect and send our messages to it. In order to make use of these connected profiles, we can now add a private method called procedure CodeSite send, taking one message of type string, and in the implementation we can use the connected profiles to send a string using CodeSite as a description and our actual message, the string, from our client application, which is a FireMonkey cross-platform mobile application, to our CodeSite App Tethering manager, which will then forward it to the CodeSite dispatcher to show it in my CodeSite live viewer or log viewer. Note that this is a private method, which I've done on purpose, because I can now create a special CodeSite class with a class method procedure send, and inside this procedure send I can call this private method because it's in the same unit. Let's rename the data module to data mod error tethering to give it a more sensible name, and we can now implement CodeSite, the class procedure send, as follows. If assigned data module error tethering, then we call the private method CodeSite send message from data module error tethering. So we can see if we can compile this project. Yes, the project compiles. So from the outside world we have a type CodeSite, a class with a class procedure to send messages, CodeSite messages, to a CodeSite live viewer or file viewer on the Windows side, connecting to the CodeSite App Tethering manager. This CodeSite client is right now a Win32 application, but we can also target Mac OS X, iOS or Android with this mobile application, calling the CodeSite send message to send messages from other platforms to the CodeSite live viewer. So what we have created right now is a CodeSite proxy object. Using a data module that can be used in both FireMonkey as well as VCL applications, I have added a CodeSite proxy class with one send class method that can be used to send a message string from a cross-platform client via the CodeSite App Tethering manager to the CodeSite application on Windows, so we can debug and trace from any mobile application to my CodeSite live viewer. We can demonstrate the use of the class procedure CodeSite in our client form for the CodeSite client. Let's, for example, add a button, an edit component, and we should add the data module to the users clause. So the CodeSite data module will be added to the implementation users clause, so the CodeSite class will be made available. One more thing, we should make sure that the data module is created. In the project source code, make sure that the data module is created before the form, so I just swap them around, so the data module is created and then the client form is created. And now inside my button I can use my CodeSite object with one method send, and I can just say hello from cross-platform client. and this text will then be sent to the CodeSite App Tethering manager, assuming the client and the server can connect to each other, and sent to my CodeSite window. Well, the CodeSite App Tethering manager is already up and running, so I will run the client now on Windows. The default target for the empty cross-platform application is Windows. Here's my client application, and I will click on this button. This is I'm not using the edit box, I just sending a plain text. So from the client to the CodeSite App Tethering manager that says hello from cross-platform client, it sends now to my CodeSite live viewer. Let's change the code to actually send edit1 dot text and run the client application again. So here we are. This is a new test, and this is my App Tethering manager. If I click on the button, my CodeSite window should show this is a new test. Let's start the manager again. So here's my CodeSite manager. Here's my CodeSite client. Talking to the manager, so we've got the client and the manager. And this is my test. Click on a button, the client sends it to the manager, and in my CodeSite live viewer we've got the this is my test message. Now this one runs on Windows, but we can of course make sure it compiles on OS X, Android and iOS as well, because this is just only Delphi code. I will deploy it now to another machine and use the same App Tethering manager to show you the debug text in here. I have now compiled and deployed the cross-platform CodeSite client application for my Android phone, and although you can't see my Android phone screen at this time, I will click on the button and the next message will be sent to my CodeSite live viewer, sent to the manager and then to the live viewer, so I can debug my applications using CodeSite from an Android phone as well, as long as the Android phone and my laptop are on the same network, on the same Wi-Fi network, so they can connect to each other. Same thing with my Android phone or with my Mac. As long as they're all on the same network, the App Tethering managers can connect to each other, and they can pair with each other, and they can connect with the profiles, and I can send my CodeSite messages from my client application to the server. So these calls for the CodeSite send can be used in my mobile applications deployed on Android right now, and when I click on the Android application, it will be sent another CodeSite test message to my application, to my log viewer. Apart from Delphi, we can also use this CodeSite data module from C++ Builder. So in the project group, let's add a new project to demonstrate this. From C++ Builder, let's create a multi-device application. You can create a blank application or any of the multi-device application templates. Project 2, and in this project we can add the data module from CodeSite with the tethering manager and profile. So with add, just select the CodeSite data module, so it's added to my project, and in my project's main source I can now add a button, a C++ Builder button, and as you can see we can now write C++ Builder code. We can call the global CodeSite class method. First add the unit to the use clause with Alt F11. I'm adding the CodeSite data module to my source unit, so we got the CodeSite data module HTTP header file added here, and now I can add CodeSite : then call the send method with a Unicode string, for example hello test from C++ Builder, And we can run this client. Well, let's first run the tethering manager again. So we have the okay, let's save everything. So here's my app tethering manager, the one that talks to the CodeSite dispatcher. And our project 2, my C++ builder project. Run the C++ builder project. I'll first compile it. And we can also use this for any of the other cross-platform targets. Click on button 1 from C++ builder, and here is my CodeSite live view with the hello test from C++ builder, and that text is also visible in my CodeSite app tethering manager. So from my C++ builder client, I send it to my CodeSite app tethering manager executable, which sends it to CodeSite. So any cross-platform application built with C++ builder can also use my CodeSite data module, which is available in the source code for download for all of you to use by Delphi as well as C++ builder FireMonkey applications. To get more information on CodeSite, you can go to the Embarcadero website /product/CodeSite, where you can get more information on CodeSite Express as well as CodeSite Studio. For more information on the techniques that I've used here, you can go to my blog, drbob42.com/blog, where you can find the article for this technique of CodeSite 11. And if you're interested in CodeSite and buying it from me as a reseller, you can go to my web shop, www.ebob42.com/codegear for the Dutch version, or drbob42.com/codegear for the English version. Also, if you want to contact me, you can send me questions by email, try to contact me on Skype, Twitter, LinkedIn or Facebook. These are all the ways to get in touch with me and ask me questions or anything you want. Thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of CodeRage.
Okay, Bob, thank you so much for that great presentation. Interesting to see a combination of app tethering used with CodeSite. I'm having trouble unmuting you there. Okay, there we go. Are you there, Bob?
Yeah, I'm here. The technique is very useful for me as well, so it's just a real-world project.
Exactly. Yeah, those are always great to see. There's some questions about app tethering here. Al's asking if app tethering clients can also detect other clients or only app tethering servers.
See the green light here?
Okay, there we go.
Oh, maybe there's a delay. But I don't know if app tethering clients can connect to other clients. I've only used this technique to connect my app tethering clients to the managers, so they can send information to the manager. It's like the other demos from app tethering, where you can upload a picture that you make on your phone to an app tethering manager that's then publish it on a website or something like that.
Okay. I think app tethering is peer-to-peer, but I know that you have to set it whether or not you decide how you want to be able to connect it and how you want it to be discoverable. Lots of people saying this is a great session. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are the messages sent through Windows Messages, are they encrypted or would they be vulnerable to other apps snooping them?
I don't know, but since app tethering only works on your local network or through Bluetooth, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, I use this technique to help me to develop mobile applications while in my own office. I don't think there's someone dangerous out there in my own office. But for practical use of app tethering, I'm not sure. I think the data is unencrypted, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think they're encrypted by default. But as you said, you're on your local network or your local machine. So if something's on your local machine sniffing your Windows messages, then I think you have other problems.
Yeah.
That's the least of your worries. Let's see. Matthew's adding app tethering is peer-to-peer. That's correct. Is app tethering proprietary, i.e. could I tether from, say, C#? So app tethering is proprietary, but in theory, you could implement the technology in C#?
Yeah, you could always write a plugin, a DLL or something like that, and then use it from other environments.
Oh, that's a great idea. So Alf saying some universities have specific Wi-Fi networks not connected to the local network. So in order to control a computer or PowerPoint presentation from local mobile Wi-Fi, it would be nice to have some proxy. So there is app tethering. You can connect to a specific IP address, Alf. So if it's not on the same subnet and you have the IP address destination, you can connect to that. And that actually works across the internet as well, as long as you can reach the IP address.
I didn't know that. Thanks.
That was a new feature that was added. You can connect to an IP address. Yeah, so you could debug from anywhere. So is there specific real-world situations where we can use this? I think that's pretty obvious. It seems like a really useful thing to do.
Yeah, especially with tracing mobile applications, it's really helpful to use CodeSite. I use CodeSite a lot, have been using it for decades. And now I can use it for my mobile app, so that's great. I think, yeah, that's a real-world application.
Yep. So there's a question about encrypting app tethering. We did have a webinar on encrypting app tethering previously, so check that out. And I don't know if it used SSL or not, but you can encrypt it and encrypt it as much as you want to. You could use OpenSSL to encrypt it too, I suppose. What's faster, app tethering or output debug string?
I don't know. I'm not sure if you can use output debug string on your mobile clients.
Yeah, output debug string is Windows specific.
So what do I use on Android or iOS? Now I can use the same code and deploy it on 5 different platforms, and it will still work.
Yeah, there's a log D, but that goes to a different place on each platform. So, and it would probably be faster because it doesn't have any network transport, but then it doesn't have any network transport, so you don't get your messages anywhere else. So I like this because it does solve that problem of how to get from everywhere into one place in CodeSite.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm a big fan of CodeSite, so I can now use it in all my mobile and cross-platform applications.
How secure if used over the internet? There's no security unless you add it.
Okay.
Peter's saying he loves CodeSite as well, uses it a lot as well. Is there a way to easily disable the sending of CodeSite messages? So if you did add this to your application, is there a way to turn it off?
Well, from the app tethering manager, you could disable CodeSite, but from the client, I just want to send my messages. Maybe if I use another app tethering message, so to say, to tell the app tethering manager that I want to stop sending CodeSite messages, but I could easily do that for my client. In my client, I can add an enabled property to true or false, and when I disable it, it will no longer use the app tethering manager to forward my resources, my CodeSite strings, and when I enable it, I can send them. So it's probably easier to handle that at the client side than at the server side.
Certainly. Now, there's a few ways you can handle it. You could use, Mark said you could use like a debug compiler directive or whatever. So there's lots of options. Can you mention what the differences are between the Express version and the non-Express versions of CodeSite?
Well, for me, the most important difference is the fact that with the CodeSite Studio, I can use the CodeSite dispatcher to send messages, CodeSite trace messages, to different machines. So I have applications that are deployed at my client sites somewhere outside of the Netherlands, in Germany, and Switzerland, and Belgium. And if they have a problem, they can, from their application, enable CodeSite in the application and send messages that will all arrive at my web server at home. So on my CodeSite live viewer, I can immediately see if they have a problem. And they don't have to email me. They will know that I will see the issue and I will address the issue. No need to send me any stuff. CodeSite will just work as a remote trace application for me.
Excellent.
And there are more differences. Just look at the CodeSite website. But this is for me the most important difference.
Yeah, I think the Studio version has like more complex, more robust data types, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you can send forms and data sets, and it also shows you memory status, and well, there's lots of other stuff. But for me, the remote tracing is the most important feature that was added to the Studio version.
Yeah. Vladimir's asking, can the client only listen for and record messages without asking for each individual message?
Sorry, I don't understand that question.
So I guess maybe does the client have to ask for a message from the app that's being debugged, or does the app just send all the messages automatically?
Well, in the app, I just use the CodeSite.send calls, and each CodeSite.send will send a string from that client application on my mobile phone to the CodeSite App Tethering manager, which will then forward it to CodeSite, and I can decide which CodeSite message to send from the client. So again, I'm not really sure I understand the question. Maybe it's about enabling or disabling CodeSite and deciding on the client when to send messages. But for that, you could extend the class with a class property enabled and enable it at will to send these messages.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Does CodeSite show the call stack in the remote live view of Studio version for remote sites?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I know. I don't know if it does that automatically, but I remember actually I created a system that would pull a call stack. I think there's a library in Jedi that does that. So you could theoretically grab that and send it through CodeSite. I mean, anything you can grab from the client, from the app you're debugging, you can send through CodeSite. So you could do that if it's not built in, which is something I love about CodeSite. It's very useful.
Jim?
Yes.
Ray Kanopka is still here.
Oh, great,
I can
Ray.
answer that question if you want.
Yeah,
fantastic.
like I said, Ray's here as well.
So the call stack view that's in the CodeSite viewer is a logical view normally, which would be available in the Express versus the Studio. And it looks at the messages that you've logged, enter methods, and it will give you a logical representation of how you've called. And with respect to getting an actual call stack, requires extra information from the calling app, like the Jedi library that you can get that if you're calling it from a .NET application and an exception that's built into the exception stack on .NET, and that information will come across separately. So the short answer is yes, you get some of that same information, but if you want more detailed information, there's various levels of, it's a logical representation of the call stack of the message view, but if you want a more detailed view, and I mentioned calling from, say, a .NET application that sends it, that stack information is built into the tool, but because on the VCL and Delphi side, you can pull out all debug information.
Okay. James says, great session on app tethering. Separately, when is Dr. Bob going to update his great DataSnap courseware to include recent XE7 Plus updates like REST JSON client, etc.? Yeah. And RAD server. So
yeah, I know. I still work on that. Sorry.
Okay, I know you're busy. Let's see. One thing I haven't found in CodeSite is a panel for status values. It's only about messages.
I would look at using the Scratchpad for that. That's one of the reasons. Using the write methods, you can write to the Scratchpad and basically have various current values of data, things that you want to see. That's the intent of that. So I think that might be what the person's asking for.
It sounds like it. And Mark's saying he's been using Eureka Log, but doesn't have a live direct view, so he's looking at possibly adding a CodeSite to his repertoire as well. That's good to hear. I love having multiple tools to tackle things, and then you're like, well, this one's got this strength, and this one's got this strength. Now I know which one I want to use for this particular instance, or combining them, as Mark's talking about. Okay. And then Peter said that we'll look into that. Thank you. That was apparently what he's looking for. Okay. Well, I think we're at the end of the questions. Thank you so much, Bob and Ray. Actually, I was really excited to see this way to extend CodeSite, and I'm glad you're here, Ray, to help step in and help answer some of the questions.
Yeah, no problem. Actually, I do have a question for Bob. I wasn't able to ask it. With respect to the app tethering, is there any limitations to the types or kinds of data that can be pushed across the app tethering interface?
I'm not sure, actually. I mainly use it just to send a simple text, and anything you can decode as text, of course. And so for the actual CodeSite class object that I use myself, I do a lot of marshalling, for example, from XML to a string, and then back and unmarshal it to other objects. So I just pass strings. I think that's the simple way, but I know there are app tethering examples where they send bitmaps for pictures that you take with your phone. So there must be other resources and types that you can send over. But I haven't played with that myself, so I think you need to ask someone else.
That's great. No, that's good information just even there. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Fantastic. That's been the one thing about CodeSite is it's like, but I can't use it for mobile. Now I can. So this is great to see. Thank you so much.
Indeed.
Mark says, thanks for answering really interesting stuff. I love CodeRage and all the time you all put into it. It's really appreciated. You're welcome, Mark. We love it too. Okay, it looks like, JSON can be used to send any data type that can be translated. That's true. You could encode anything as JSON and translate it. Are your code samples available, Bob?
Yes, if they go to my blog, drbob42/blog, there's a blog post with a full link to the full article, the PowerPoint slides, as well as the source code. So everything is online as of today. And if they can't find it, just contact me, but it's online on my website right now.
Great. And questions just keep coming here. Thanks to Dr. Bob, our #1 Delphi hero. Keep up the good work. Yes, Dr. Bob is amazing.
You're welcome.
That's, I gotta admit, that's one of my favorite things about my job, and I'm always talking to everybody about how fantastic it is that, here I'm working with all of my idols, right? I get to work with Bob and Marco and Carrie and Ray and everybody, and it's just great. Occasionally, I just totally freak out and can't believe I get to do this. It would be cool to add app tethering natively to CodeSite viewer and negate the need for a manager. That would be cool. File a feature request.
That's not in Bob's hands at the moment.
Yeah, it's not in Bob's hands.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, call it at Embarcadero.com and file a feature request and say, hey, Bob can do it. Or Bob showed us how. So let's see, great session. I'll take a look at the source code as well. And now someone's asking, how do you say thank you in Flemish, Bob?
Well, Flemish is actually Belgium, and I'm Dutch, but it's dank u.
Dank u. Okay.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Oh, and Peter says Ray is his hero as well.
Well, thank you.
Yes, it's great.
And he's mine.
And yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. And looks like we have a few minutes before the next session. So I'm going to look and see if I have a couple quick videos that I can run here to show off some cool things. So thanks, guys. And thanks for all you do.
Okay, bye.
Bye.